So welcome everyone. As you join, we have some climate trivia. We're just waiting for a lot of people. We were very excited. Hundreds of people signed up for today's webinar. So as we let everyone in, we'd love you to guess the answers, or if you already know the answers, to the following 3 questions. And you can put your answers in the chat. And then we promise we will reveal the answers. How many metric tons of greenhouse gases does humanity emit annually? What year was the first Earth Day? Which company do you know that famously left the U.S. Chamber of Commerce over climate concerns? And
There's
Van,
no multiple choice? We have to just...
No multiple choice. This is climate trivia.
That's toughy.
No cheating. No chat daddy.
You know, I would never.
Exactly. And then as people are joining too, if you want to put in the chat where you're calling in from today, we'd love to know where everyone is. Ayana from Brooklyn is here. We've got a guest for 1972. Hi, look at all of these different states. And France and Sweden, we are an international crowd. New Delhi, India, welcome.
It's late over there.
I know. We're so excited you joined. That's really impressive. Houston is in the house. Seattle, the Bay Area, awesome. Turkey, amazing.
Oh, cool.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, Drew, you want to do the reveal?
Bada boom. There you go.
So again, depressing in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. Incredible to think that the first Earth Day was in 1970 and that we've been celebrating it annually ever since. And then Apple, we are always very proud at Climate Voice to share, left the Chamber of Commerce in 2009 because of the organization's climate obstruction. They took a big stand, and we want to see more companies do the same in the future. Okay, so let's get started.
All right. Welcome to Green Team Success Stories, Employees Advanced Climate Action at Work, brought to you by Climate Voice. Hi, I'm Drew. I'm a climate activist, community organizer, and a co-founder of Microsoft's Green Team. I do a lot of work with Climate Voice, and I'm very happy to introduce you to my jazz hands in residence, Jennifer Allen.
Woot woot.
Doing it.
And thank you so much, Drew.
Yeah, go ahead.
I lead campaigns for Climate Voice, and I'm so thrilled that all of you are here. And I actually consider myself to be part of a movement of people who have changed careers to work on climate. So I spent the majority of my career focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in large companies, and loved that work very much, but started to get really, really worried about global warming. And I took a leap. I quit my job. I joined Climate Voice. And then I actually even went back to school and studied climate at Columbia University's new climate school. So I feel really lucky that at the very beginning of my climate journey, I met Bill Weil. So here's a picture of us at the Green Biz conference earlier this year in February. And Bill is sort of an iconic guy. I can brag about him because he's not here. And he was a sustainability leader at Facebook. And before that, he had the great title of Green Energy Czar at Google. And Bill did a lot of amazing work in sustainability, really important cutting edge innovations. And while he was in both of those roles, he realized that the most transformative lever to address the climate crisis at scale, the systemic sort of changes we needed public policy. And he wanted the companies that he worked for to really use their influence and their voice to advocate for bold climate policies. And what he found was it was really hard to get those companies to take a stand. And so his theory was we need pressure. They need to be pushed to do this. And that the most positive and amazing way to push them is to get their employees to really advocate from within, to sort of unlock that corporate influence. So he knew that companies had enormous influence on lawmakers and that employees could urge their employees to take bolder climate action. So that's why he founded Climate Voice. Now, with this latest US election, you might think there's not going to be a lot more climate policy in the world. But the truth is, there are very exciting things happening at the state level, in cities, across the country. And there's amazing climate policy happening around the world, which is a testament to how many people are here internationally. And so we still think that there's a really important focus for companies to use their voice in this way. So at this Green Biz conference, Bill said, sorry. He said, he told the audience, you don't know the power of your voice until you lose it. And Bill tragically actually lost his ability to speak due to ALS, but that disease has not stopped him from speaking out loudly and clearly with the help of AI and also through his writing. And now we can go to the next slide, which is why we're thrilled to have all of you here today. So we're going to set some context, and Drew's going to talk about the power of green teams. We have an extraordinary panel of employee advocates who are going to share both their success stories and the challenges that they face doing this work inside companies. And then we have plenty of time for Q&A because we want to hear from all of you. So with that, I just want to introduce our panelists. You're going to hear more from them. We're going to interview them in depth so that we can hear their stories. And then we want to hear a little bit about you and sort of start with a poll.
All right. So we're going to launch a poll in the Zoom chat, and we want to know from all of you who are dialing in from all over the world, on a scale of 1 to 5, how concerned are you about climate change? 1 being not at all, 5 being I'm freaking out. And on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is it to you that your organization does something about climate change? Your employer, not at all important, all the way up to all the importance. And then we want to know, does your organization already have a green team? So please use the pop-up window and let's get some answers going. Okay, a lot of people are freaking out, rightfully so. A lot of people think that this is one of the most important things their organizations can do. And the majority of your organizations do already have green teams, which is wonderful. You've already taken the first steps towards getting employees a seat at the table. Really, really cool to get this data. Thank you for providing it. So I'm going to kick off this with just a little bit of context setting to make sure we're all speaking the same language and tee up our wonderful speakers, knowing that many of you, this is your first time on a sustainability call. So let's go ahead and just do some big picture context setting. So we'll start with definitions. I want to make sure we're all speaking the same language here. So when we talk about sustainability, what we mean is to create and maintain the conditions that allow humans and nature to coexist for present and future generations. When we talk about employee engagement, we mean actions to increase employee participation in a company's environmental sustainability efforts. And when we talk about green teams, employee sustainability communities, depending on where you live and how they're called, it's really just a group of employees inside of a company who are organized around the topic of sustainability. So these communities take many forms. Some are employee resource groups, ERGs. Some are business resource groups, BRGs. Some are communities of practice. The form changes, but the function is generally the same. And that is to provide structure and support for employees to get educated, inspired, and activated about environmental sustainability. So why do we need green teams? Why do this at all? Well, I could do an entire hour-long webinar on that, but to boil it down to one slide, even in the best case scenarios, and many of the employees you're going to hear from today work at companies who are genuine corporate sustainability leaders, even in the best case scenarios, the number of people who work on sustainability full-time in most organizations is less than 1%. Now we're talking about a planet-sized problem, and that's going to require planet-sized solutions. So this model doesn't scale. And on top of that, many of the sustainability teams that are embedded inside of these organizations are under-resourced, under-influenced, and expected to somehow change the entirety of not only what their company does, but if you're doing something like Scope 3 carbon emissions, you're actually trying to influence the behavior of other corporations in your supply and value chain. So needless to say, less than 1% of the workforce working on sustainability doesn't scale, doesn't work. And so the solution is pretty simple, right? It's to make sustainability part of everybody's job. And there's lots of ways you can do that. There's top-down initiatives, there's bottom-up initiatives. We don't have time today to go into the nuances of all of this, but for the purposes of our conversations, we're going to talk about green teams, because green teams are one of the most scalable and cost-effective ways to do that, to make sustainability part of everybody's jobs. So I'm not going to, drain the slide, but you can see a short list of some of the benefits of what happens when you get that 99% of your workforce that don't have sustainability in their job titles. It isn't part of their, main day-to-day responsibilities. But when you invite those people to contribute to your company's environmental sustainability efforts, you can do incredible things. And you're about to hear some unbelievable examples from our speakers. And so I really like this photo from an unknown climate protest. I think it really sums this up. A picture is worth 1,000 words. If we're going to change everything, and believe me, if we're going to address the climate crisis, we are going to have to change everything. We're going to need everyone. And so if I could really boil it down to one sentence, and this is a great tee up for our speakers, these green teams that you're going to hear from today and these companies have successfully changed the paradigm of who gets to work on sustainability. It used to be that the only people who were allowed to work on sustainability were the people who had it in their job titles or in their job descriptions. But from the examples you're going to hear today, employees in these companies, and many of yours, more than half of you have green teams, have changed that paradigm. And so this is the representation that we have on the call today. Now, many of these companies, as I said earlier, are genuine corporate sustainability leaders. They are doing more than just about anybody else. They're putting more resources into it. They're trying to not only successfully measure their environmental impact, but actively reduce it. And so if you've seen their sustainability reports or you've seen press releases or whatever, you probably know that about these companies. But what you don't know, and what I'm so excited about this call, because I was telling the speakers in the green room right before this call is like 5 years in the making. Employees inside these companies have been organizing these green teams since at least 5 years ago. And yet it's been really difficult to get information about that out into the world, what's going on behind the curtain inside those companies. And so today you're going to get to learn a lot about these employee sustainability communities, how large they are, when they were founded, kind of where they are in their own maturity as a community, from kind of like just starting out to growing to like self-sustaining. Some of them have executive sponsorship from chief sustainability officers, some don't. But this is an unbelievable snapshot of what thousands and thousands and thousands of employees inside some of the world's largest and most influential companies have been doing to get these companies to become the corporate sustainability leaders that they're known as today. So without further ado, I'm going to drop the screen.
You're kicking off the interview, Drew. You're interviewing Kevin first.
That's true. Kevin, we're going to talk to you first. It's so good to have you here. Kevin is a global client lead partner at Pinterest, and he's a co-founder of their green team, Pin Planet. So maybe I should leave that slide up. It doesn't matter. So Kevin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of Pin Planet, since you're one of the co-founders?
Yeah, sure, for sure. And also just really excited to be here and hear everyone's stories. Thank you so much to you and Jennifer for putting this together. So Pin Planet started back in 2021. We have this employee event at Pinterest called KnitCon, and it's basically where anyone can kind of like present information as a subject matter expert on anything. It can be like how to make salsa. It can be how to bake the perfect pie. It's basically a 2-day holiday where we all teach something. And this was around the time that I had seen a really amazing TED talk from someone named Jamie Alexander. I highly recommend it. And she talks about the responsibility that we all have as employees and as kind of corporate citizens to make an impact on sustainability. And so I actually reached out to Project Drawdown, an amazing organization who we're still working with them. And I said, I would love to host a workshop on like how to kind of uncover your climate superpower. And I hosted this event. It was well attended. There were a number of people who then were like, okay, like they uncovered their superpower through this process. And I'll share details later. But what was so cool was to see the breadth of interest of the types of things people wanted to do and how to take action. And so we very quickly were like, well, gosh, like this shouldn't end here. We should all get together and kind of make some of these things happen. And so Pin Planet was kind of born out of that. And over the years, we've just since kind of figured out like how to evangelize sustainability across 3 different sort of like spheres, through our employees, through our advertising partners, because they're asking a lot about sustainability, and then to our pinners. And that's, I guess, like one of the areas that I feel is the area that I'm the most excited about, is that Pinterest reaches literally 500 million people every month through the lens of inspiration. And we just have such an incredible opportunity to like be a force for good on the topic of sustainability to those people. So that's where it all got started. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
So that's amazing. So it sounds like not only have you helped put sustainability sort of higher up on the priority list internally at Pinterest, but you're also using your influence with other stakeholders for the company, your customers, your users, and all of that to advance sustainability outside the four walls of the company. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lovely.
It's like every time we get a question from our clients, because a lot of our clients themselves are sustainable brands or are really passionate about sustainability. And when they ask us, hey, like, what are you all doing around sustainability? How are you sourcing your energy? Like, because to your point, our energy becomes their scope 3 emissions. And so it's all, we're sort of tied together, but also it's something where it's like it's something that we need to do, but it's something that at Pin Planet we want to do. We want to do it because it's the right thing for us to do as a company. So yeah, it's like a flywheel effect.
Amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the strategies that you've used to not only found the community, but to grow it, to build it, to give it that influence, to help develop that expertise? And also, if you don't mind, could you talk about some of the challenges? Because
Yeah.
I can say from experience too, it's not easy to organize employees and keep the momentum going. So we'd love to just hear about the strategies that you used to build up the community and what some of the obstacles along the way have been.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the first thing to say is that Pinterest is a smaller company. I think of the companies represented here, we're probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest. And so we're pretty lean. And it's a culture, I work at a culture where everyone is used to just like doing something else, doing more than their own responsibility. So that culture already exists, which is great. One of the things that we learned very on is as early as that first engagement, that climate superpower engagement, was that what I want to do, the impact that I want to drive, knowing that all of our time is limited, it might be different from someone else's. And so one of the first things we do when people come to our Slack channel is we serve them a Google form and just say, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you know? What are the things that you know? What are your, like, where do you want to make an impact? And who is the audience that you want to reach? Like, some people just are natural inborn, like culture carriers who are really passionate about making a difference in our company. Some people like me who work on the advertising and marketing side want to take advantage of the fact that we reach so many people as a platform. So once we know that, we can start to say like, okay, so you're interested in this type of thing. So maybe you're more internal communications and events. You're more interested in things like how you can make a difference to Pinterest and kind of infuse sustainability as a topic into those kind of outward facing roles. And so it really I felt like that was an initial hook that I felt was really helpful to see, like, so that when people were the time that they were doing something that they were passionate about. And then also just like being able to speak the language of the company itself. Some people, we need to make it really, really easy to be successful. We needed to make Pinterest part of our general corporate ethic and ethos. So one of the things that Pinterest is really focused on is emotional well-being, and so climate anxiety is one of the top issues, especially affecting younger people, Gen Z. And so that's an area that is really right for us to cross-pollinate with folks internally who are focused on that emotional well-being pillar. So it's kind of like almost like working within the natural flow of certain work streams internally and finding your champions, and then just like making sure that we were giving people the types of work that they wanted to really affect change. And in terms of the biggest challenges, I would say it's bandwidth, because we oftentimes have situations where people will volunteer to do something, and then they'll just get busy, or maybe one of their coworkers goes out on leave, and they're now doing 2 jobs, and so it's something where we have to be very forgiving and just let people know, listen, we know that you have a role outside of this. And so we try to double or triple people up in their roles to kind of provide a little bit of air cover there. But it's challenging. It's like it's just that ebb and flow. And we all know that the holiday season is busy because of what Pinterest does. And so it's just that's probably the biggest challenge is just like knowing that we all have day jobs. So
amazing.
I have a feeling that's a common refrain that we're going to hear. So thank you so much, Kevin, for giving us a window into Pinterest. We'll bring you back at the Q&A at the end. All right, Céline. Céline is a director of solution engineering at Salesforce, and she's a member of Earthforce, which is one of Salesforce's 13 equality groups. So, Céline, as we were kind of collecting some information about these communities that like what I flashed up on the screen right before we went into the panel, Earthforce is not only the oldest, founded in 2013, but it's also the largest of all of the green teams. You have 15,000 members, which represents 20% of the entire workforce at Salesforce. Just for those who dialed in late, the average proportion of members in these green teams is like hovering under 5%. So what do you think accounts for this massive size and impact of Earthforce?
Yeah, thanks so much. Also really excited to be here from Toronto and representing Earthforce. I need to shout out all our Earthforce members at Salesforce. I'm just representing as one person here, but there are so many amazing people really passionate about sustainability at Salesforce that contribute to this success. I think something that Salesforce did really, really well since the beginning of business resource groups, they're called now. Just to correct, Earthforce is the second largest. We have the SWN, that is a women network at Salesforce. That is a little bit bigger still, but we are really managed by a corporate entity that's called the Office of Equality. And they help us actually structure all our business resource groups with providing us training, with helping us structure, and also with providing us with somewhat of a manner of scaling. So even our structure within Earthforce, I'm part of the global team representing 11 people that support our global hubs, and our specific group is structured in regional team members that support the AMER business, the APAC business, the MEA business, the LATAM business, and below that, that's where we have hubs. Hub teams, and those hub teams are really the employees that focus locally and enable our employees to engage with Salesforce, but also with our communities, and really have that local impact. So I do think a big success of just having so many people is the interest of Salesforce to help drive sustainability issues. We have our own product where we try to drive climate action with our customers. That's also a product we developed ourselves, but also, Salesforce is just overall mindset of a corporate philanthropy model that we created, the 111 model in 1999. A lot of tech companies have adopted that right now too, and that I think is just ingrained in the company and in the business.
That's so cool. It sounds like at Salesforce you have a culture of community in place, which kind of laid a good foundation for not only Earthforce but all of these other, communities to thrive, and that's amazing. So it also sounds like you have a lot of top-down support, which not every green team does, right? Like in a lot of companies, these green teams start as employee-initiated efforts. They don't really get sponsorship or budget or resourcing. It's kind of scrappy and grassroots. So can you tell us what it looks like to have that as much sort of top-down sponsorship and support from your company's leadership as you do, and what kind of benefits you get from that?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been a journey too, right? Again, our Office of Equality is a key office that supports all of our 13 groups, and they also help kind of pave the way for execs to involve, maybe bring this to the forefront to them, do some of that work in the back end. I think everybody on here knows too, with volunteering time, some of these really big missions to really drive full change in a company can be really difficult. So we definitely lean on that team to help us. But the great thing is, so our previous exec sponsor was Susan DeBianca, our Chief Impact Officer and EVP of Customer Success today. Now we're working with SVP and GM of one of our energy and utilities industry segments and an EVP of Customer Success and Partner Marketing. And actually, it's amazing. Like, these leaders have such a broad network. They are able to help scale our messaging, maybe share some of the things we're doing, and then get more employees that aren't yet aware of like our business resource groups to join us in our Slack channels, in our community channels. That's the first step. Obviously, once they're in those channels, they can engage in hubs, be an active member or a hub lead, take more leadership role, or even, again, join, like myself, the global team. But these exec sponsors are we're holding them accountable on their V2 Mom, which is our main values and objectives that we set in the beginning of the year, and try to align with them on projects we want to do together. But they really help us to connect with different folks internally. They help us kind of reach more people, and also give us coaching on projects, like how do we navigate this space, because we're also employees doing this the first time, and their like leadership experience is really helping us with our energy and utility industry lead. She's really focused on wanting to connect us with also our customers in that space. So I'm really excited for more to come. Again, it's always, as Kevin mentioned already, the time commitment and what can be done. So we, even on the global team, are super strict in where can we spend time. Let's do something one big project a year that we actually can execute on, that's really going to make a change, versus 15 different things in all these different regions. And that's where we really try to focus our time spent as well with our exec sponsors. Again, work in progress. We're learning how to work with them better, vice versa. So definitely something we're continuously excited to improve on too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right, there's not like a blueprint for this. There's not some guidebook that says, here's how you successfully run an employee green team, and here's exactly what exec sponsors should do. All of us have been and are trying to figure this out inside of our companies. So we asked you before the call for a little bit of information about EarthForce, and we asked what one of the more popular things that the community does, one of the more popular activities for members. And you mentioned the Sustainability Storyteller Initiative. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what it's trying to do?
Yeah, it's really exciting. So, something you have asked as well is on how we measure our teams. And up until now, equality resource groups are really measured by volunteering hours. All of our employees at Salesforce get 57 hours per year to volunteer. Our leaders are actually holding our employees accountable. Myself, I'm a leader trying to motivate the team to also do the volunteering hours that we're allowed to do at Salesforce throughout the year. But that's really a big way how we measure our volunteering. Since now 2-ish years, we shifted to becoming business resource groups. So we're wanting to have a bigger impact. I really liked, Kevin, what you mentioned at Pinterest, right? How can we connect more with the impact in the business? A big part of that, obviously, is us also making sure more customers are aware of our net zero solutions. But another part of that is how can we connect in this way with other companies? Make sure, there are so many ways how we can also, as communities, come together and actually be a voice out there. And those are things that we're trying to identify. So the project on the Sustainability Storyteller piece that I have been helping and working on with other leaders and hub leads, which has actually been grassroots from our hub in London, in UK, is enabling our employees to learn about sustainability concepts. And they want to know more, what are we doing at Salesforce around sustainability, but then confidently speak about that to our customers, attend events, represent other teams. And what is really, really exciting is we had a kickoff. Again, this is a pilot project this year, and we hope to scale it further. but is that we have more advocates that now can go out and speak to our customers, share that message, maybe do volunteering involvements with our customers as well, and just be comfortable with that. So to summarize, it's really focusing on professional development, and making sure that people that are interested in sustainability can actually drive a career in that manner. And it's fun because we have 14 people and we have people all across the globe. And it's actually also something I pitched to our sustainability team. Hey, this is talent you guys can rely on in India, in Japan, right? So it's really, really interesting. Again, early stages, but we're getting somewhere as well.
Yeah, I love that, right? Like the critical first step for any organization to holistically transform is to upskill its workforce on whatever topic they're trying to develop. And sustainability is something that almost no company provides training on. So how can you expect your workforce to meaningfully understand what is climate change? What are climate solutions? What is our company doing about it if you aren't providing that kind of basic training? And so it's really gratifying to hear that in cases where maybe the company hasn't provided that top down, the employees have organized themselves and said, we will create the infrastructure so that all of us can increase our climate literacy. So thanks, Céline. We're going to move on. Sounds like Jennifer's having some technical issues, so I'll keep hosting for now. I'm going to move to Microsoft, where I spent 7 years and co-founded their green team along with Holly, who's on the call, and Van, who's an active volunteer leader in the community now. Holly and I both no longer at Microsoft. So Van's been a marketer there for about 10 years. Holly was also there for 10 years and did probably more than any individual person for sustainability that I've ever met. But Holly, I want to go in the time machine back to 2018 when you and I co-founded what became Microsoft's 10,000 member employee sustainability community. It was literally just the two of us. There was no concept that it would become a part of the company's sustainability strategy or that it would push the company to make these big, ambitious sustainability commitments. So when you reflect back on this journey for more than 6 years now, can you just share some reflections from what it was like to go from founding something to leading it, to pushing it? What were the biggest wins, biggest challenges? Just want to hear from your general experience.
Sure, yeah, and thanks for having me here. I'm so glad we've stayed in touch, even after both leaving Microsoft and doing our own things. We still have a lot that we're working on that overlaps. So, and great to meet the folks that are also doing these things in other companies. But as Drew said, our model really came from the two of us getting together and thinking about what we wanted to see at the company. It was a really grassroots model from the very beginning. It was really born from necessity and programs that we wanted to see as employees. For example, we wanted to learn more about various sustainability topics, so we created a speaker series. We wanted to have a single consolidated location to see what employees across the globe were working on and join together on various projects. So we created the Action Box, which was this central repository for employee-led projects. And when those programs started to grow and started getting to be kind of too much for just the two of us to handle running just as volunteers on top of our day jobs, that's when we realized that we needed to have additional volunteers to help run these programs. So we started kind of hiring and bringing on new leads to help run these various programs. Ended up having, I think, 8 different programs that had 2 leads for each program. But simultaneously, there were also great things happening with employees all across the world. Even when Drew and I were first meeting, there were already some pockets of other employees across the globe who were doing amazing things, localized. And so we started also this chapter model. So we still had our broader umbrella of the sustainability connected community that had, the executive sponsor. We were getting some funding every year. But then we had it localized to different chapters, and we had there's kind of like franchises, and we had these chapter leads that led those local chapters. So we had lots going on all the time. So every month we had different meetings with the chapter leads. We had meetings with the program leads, try to understand what was working well, what wasn't, how we could all support each other. And then we also had every month these whole community calls where we invited the entire sustainability community across the globe. We had them at various times to work across different time zones. And there we highlighted success stories with the different chapters, with the different programs, so that folks who were living in Belgium who may not have even realized that they had a local group could join that group and get involved in on the ground projects in their communities. And then last thing I'll say is it was also really helpful to bring in some official, sustainability leaders from across the company who were leading our carbon program or leading our waste program and talk about what they were doing in this official capacity. And that was really kind of invigorating to employees to see that, hear about that directly from that leader, and also kind of give some feedback. Sometimes employees across the company had good ideas that maybe that lead had just never even thought of in their ivory tower. No, I'm just kidding. But in that sustainability group. And so getting that employee input was helpful for both parties. So that's
very cool.
What I have to say there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously there's so much more to say, but
yeah,
for the purposes of this initial webinar, it's just our first one. If folks like it, we can certainly bring these people back or find other ways to engage. But now I want to turn it over to Van. Van is still at Microsoft. Van is an active volunteer leader in the community that we started all those years ago. So Van, last year you ran a really successful campaign inside Microsoft to try to get the company to leave the U.S. Chamber of Commerce over its climate obstruction. And for those who don't know, the Chamber of Commerce is a US-based trade association. All of these companies pay dues every year, and then the trade association lobbies on their behalf. And it's largely in line with fossil fuel interests. And so can you talk a little bit about the Escape the Chamber campaign that you ran inside of Microsoft and
Sure.
how the company responded to that?
Yeah, sure. So, I actually got a lot of help from Holly at the time, so thank you, Holly, to take the platform that was there and start to present to other members, and have a very great partner and some other partners that we've included since. But the idea was really to make people aware of what the chamber was doing and how they are so obstructionist and how they are completely misaligned with Microsoft's values as a sustainable corporation. If you look at what Senator Sheldon Whitehouse has said about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, he's been pretty clear that while they may have members like Microsoft that care about sustainability, they do everything to be obstructionist. And, very often Microsoft has come out like some of the California laws where there was disclosures about emissions, and the Microsoft said, yeah, we support that. And then the chamber went ahead and sued California. So as a result of the petition that we've been sending around through the company and getting people to sign up for, Microsoft did do a scorecard that was public of their lobbyist groups, and showed that they were misaligned with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, highly misaligned. And now we're trying to get them to take that next step and say, hey, let's move on and let's work with a coalition of other companies who are actually aligned with what Microsoft is trying to do.
That's amazing. So employees inside the sustainability community at Microsoft organized, put pressure on the company to say, you're a member of this trade association that is completely misaligned with your own sustainability commitments. What are you going to do about this? And the company did respond by creating a first of its kind public report that audited all of its trade association memberships. That is an incredible win, and something that probably would not have happened were it not for employees bringing up this issue. So congratulations, that's really, really cool. So Holly, I'm going to turn it back over to you because you left the company earlier this year. If you want to talk about why, happy to give you space for that. But one of the longest running and arguably most impactful things that you worked on in your entire time at Microsoft was trying to get the company to change the way that it works with fossil fuel companies. For those who don't know, Microsoft is the largest cloud provider to the oil and gas industry. It gives them all kinds of advanced technology like artificial intelligence to help them drill, baby, drill. And Holly and some of our other former colleagues were very vocal about the double standard and the hypocrisy of being a climate leader, but also empowering the oil and gas industry to continue business as usual. So can you tell us a little bit about the Enabled Emissions campaign, both the 6 years you ran it inside the company and maybe what you've done since leaving the company with it?
Yeah, that was a perfect introduction. Very well said on the hypocrisy, the double standard that we saw. We really started being vocal about this topic back in 2019, where employees started actually standing up to senior leadership in public forums and asking, how do you square this topic that Microsoft is a sustainability leader in so many ways? Internally, as a company, Microsoft has incredible sustainability commitments around carbon, water, waste, and ecosystems. Yet at the same time, they're providing these custom advanced technologies very specifically to increase oil and gas production. Hundreds of times the impact of Microsoft's entire company's emissions from a single deal. I mean, we've done some of the carbon math on these deals that, again, you can total Microsoft scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon emissions, including data centers. And a single deal can be 300% of that entire company's emissions for an entire year. And that's just what Microsoft is providing technology to increase that production. So we started asking back in 2019 about how the company is thinking about this issue. And to their credit, Microsoft then came out in 2022 with energy principles for how Microsoft will work with the oil and gas industry. I will paste these principles in the chat here. And we thought that was a great win. Some of these principles were around Microsoft only providing technology, custom technology to these companies, that only companies that have a net zero carbon target. At first, that sounded fantastic, and employees really felt like it was a great win. And in a lot of ways, it really was. It was supposed to be a first step, and we were supposed to improve from there. It turns out that this net zero carbon target from these energy companies, oil and gas companies, is only those companies' operational emissions. So basically how they power their office buildings, and it does not account for the fossil fuels themselves. So we really felt like that was just not nearly it wasn't really relevant to our concerns. And so we continue to push for a couple years more after that. And we also, to Microsoft's credit, we were able to meet with the senior leaders of the company. We met with the president, Brad Smith, and we were meeting with senior leaders in the energy space and asking for transparency and how we can close those loopholes. Unfortunately, we then just felt that this internal pressure was really important. And I will always maintain this internal pressure is extremely important. We just also felt like we needed to also have pressure from an external position. So that's why a couple of us left the company in January of this year. And now we are starting this external campaign to try to pull various levers to try to make change. So that's what we're working on now. I can post some more information in the chat, and also what you can do if you own Microsoft stock. You can vote in our shareholder resolution that's in this December, and it's really just to ask Microsoft for more transparency and ask for them to evaluate the risks of this work. We're not even saying at all cut ties with oil and gas, but we need to have more transparency into this work that's happening, and we're asking for them to evaluate the risks of this work, operational risks, financial risks, and risks to employee retention. And so it was kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of situation. But that's where we are now. I'm happy to share a lot more information. Like Jennifer said earlier, I'm also in this changing careers thing right now. We just did the quitting part. We're not yet on the new job part, but we're setting that up right now.
Well, building on that, Holly, I think we should change to Sam now, because Sam works at Waymo, which is a subsidiary of Alphabet, and Alphabet employees also were very focused about AI for oil. And so, Sam, I just thought maybe you could talk a little bit about that campaign, because you work through internal processes to get the company's attention on that.
Yeah, that's one that, to be honest, I wasn't as personally involved in, but what they did was there's an internal AI ethics kind of standard at Google, and so what they did is appealed to leadership through that. So basically saying that kind of like what Holly said, like this is completely out of line with kind of our ethics and our code of conduct with respect to climate, and so. That was successful in getting Google to stop building custom AI tools for oil extraction.
Which was amazing, and just a really great idea in terms of using the ethics process internally to try to really push an issue. So another campaign, Sam, that you're working on, because I love you're part of a lot of different climate groups at Alphabet, is to try to get fossil-free retirement accounts available for employees. So can you talk a little bit about how you organized your peers and colleagues around that, how you built the business case, and what the response has been so far from the company?
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is something that I think wasn't really on my radar until a few years ago, and actually saw a talk by Bill McKibben, and he sort of explained kind of this connection between like, hey, do you actually know what's in your 401k? And most people don't. It's just basically whatever is in the stock market, and that's about 10% of that is fossil fuel stocks. For probably most folks on the call, so we thought that this would be a great opportunity to kind of like line this up better with Google's net zero commitments to say like let's get fossil fuels out of Google's 401k. Google is actually Vanguard's biggest client, so we figured that like we have quite a bit of leverage with them, and they're the biggest provider of 401ks in the United States. So a lot of leverage with like a big player. So first it was kind of like understanding the space, which is like a little bit wonky. It's a little bit like 401ks might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think about climate and the environment. So sort of, first step was just educating ourselves, understanding the space, and kind of like both like what the impact would be and also how this works, like who in the company makes these decisions, what's the stuff that they care about. And it's not the sustainability team, right? It's human resources and people ops. And so kind of it's like a totally different side of the business from people who talk about green energy or recycling or whatever it is. So once we educated ourselves, we did a brown bag to educate other employees. We did a petition and got about 1,200 signatures on that, and used that as leverage to reach out to the folks who do our benefits. And at the same time, we got a lot of support from other folks outside Google. We had some media coverage, a couple really good op-eds and articles kind of explaining how all this stuff works. And so this was great for raising awareness both amongst employees, and then also something we could point to when we're talking to the stakeholders who work in human resources who actually make these decisions. So this is still ongoing. We've kind of gotten our requests out to human resources. They've said, we've heard you, and we're considering your proposals. So we can't claim victory yet, but a pretty good momentum behind that one.
Well, and one of the great things about Alphabet employees is you guys are so persistent, and I think that is a really big lesson for everyone in the call. You're not going to get your wins immediately. These are long-term campaigns, and so thank you so much for all the work that you do. Okay, Prashansa, we're so excited to have you. Tell us about Go Green at LinkedIn.
Right. So at LinkedIn, we have a lot of employee resource groups where basically the definition would be groups that are underrepresented in the workforce, and then there are special efforts to give more representation for those groups in the workforce. Unfortunately, our planet is not underrepresented. It is not part of the ERG. Okay, it is part of the sustainability initiative at LinkedIn. So the Go Green team, of course, is designed in a way where we want to encourage employees to participate more in company events. And the whole focus of Go Green team would be to create events for employees that are more green.
Great. So in addition to being a team lead, you also said you're a green coach. So can you talk about how you help your colleagues develop more green skills to make every job a climate job?
Right. So, well, I have the pleasure to be a green coach, and I do help not just employees, but users on LinkedIn to understand a bit more about green jobs and green skills. There is no one definition what that means. Basically, it would be an understanding to see a job or a skill that helps do your daily job more effectively or is helping the planet in some way. So, for example, if somebody is a software engineer, they could learn skills to build a green code, meaning a code that is more efficient and is helping save some resources from this planet. LinkedIn has a report. You can all find it. It is called as the skill report, green skill report, and the economic graph. So it's a very nice interactive map, which will tell you basically you can build skills and you can find jobs, green jobs. And people are so surprised to even know you actually don't need to have a green qualification, which doesn't exist necessarily, to find a green job. So we have classified them into different job types, like green, greening potential, not green. And the idea would be for people to think which skills you could build eventually and in which industries. So for example, when you look at the report, you can think for jobs in, for example, renewable sector, in the finance sector, and electrical mobility, and all ancillary industries, for example, around electric mobility. So, for example, buying an electric car is not necessarily a solution, but maybe traveling by an electric bus, but then thinking about the ticketing system that would go behind the whole platform. So, that is what I mean by ancillary industries.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that resource. And I just want to invite the rest of our panelists actually to drop in the chat any resources or podcasts or articles or books, website. And I see Holly has taken full advantage of sharing all of her information in the chat, that we want to leave this audience with actually really concrete resources that they can continue this conversation and continue this exploration. So Drew, I'll send it back to you.
I think it's almost time to close, but I hope all of you dialing in kind of understand that these green teams can be so much more than just some employees planting trees and recycling in the office. When you get employees together, when they get organized, again, you change the paradigm of who is allowed to work on sustainability. What came up repeatedly from the speakers was changing sustainability from an operational thing that one team does in a silo, one chronically under-resourced and less than 1% of the workforce team, changing sustainability from an operational task into a cultural value that all employees feel not only empowered to contribute to, but responsible for, so that everyone is looking at the intersection of sustainability with their current job, with their responsibilities. And so these green teams are one of the best ways to actually start that process of culture change. And so I hope that all of you leave the call inspired, connect with our wonderful speakers on LinkedIn, and go forth and organize inside your companies, because hopefully by now you understand that these things do take time. They're not easy or fast. No climate solution really is. But employees have a really critical role to play in pushing their employers to do more than they would on their own, doing it faster, creating that connective tissue between departments, like Sam mentioned, HR and sustainability. Maybe they aren't even talking to each other. So anyways, there's an amazing amount of work that all of you can go do right now. And the key takeaway is you don't need to have sustainability in your job title to do it. You don't need to be an expert. You don't even need to be that good at community organizing. None of us were when we started. You learn as you go, but you have to take those first steps. And today's the day.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you. Just a round of applause to our panelists who were so insightful and amazing. Thank you for those real life examples and inspiration. And you know, at Climate Voice, our tagline is that when employees speak, companies act. So we hope everyone goes forth and raises their climate voice. And please follow us on LinkedIn, keep in touch. We'd love feedback on this webinar. And thank you, Drew, for spearheading all of this. It's been a pleasure working with you on it.
Before we go, one more plug. Let me grab the link. Yep. Almost forgot because I didn't have the slides up. We do have another session already organized next week. It's an AMA, an Ask Me Anything, with myself and the director of Climate Voice, unstructured, open. If you have, we didn't end up having time, unfortunately, in this session to do Q&A with the panelists. We'll certainly create opportunities for that in the future. But there is another call. It's already organized. It's next week. So if you're inspired or you want to learn more, please join us for that. Maybe we'll get lucky and a few of our lovely panelists will join and you can ask them a question there. December 11th.
December 11th, closing out the year, all about climate. So
thanks, everybody. Go forth and green team.
Exactly. Have a great day.